Welcome to Guests for Change. My name is Michaela, and I'm Head of Sustainability for the Guest List. Today our guest is Karla Magruder, founder of Accelerating Circularity. This is a new non-profit organization that she founded in 2019, all with the intention to accelerate circularity, specifically within the recycling of textiles. She has been involved in the textile industry for more than 30 years, harnessing her global experiences from fiber to finished garments. Karla previously founded Fabrikology, a textile consulting company 18 years ago. We are very grateful for your time and are humbled and excited to learn more about the perspective of circularity. What exactly inspired you to enter into the textile industry?
For me, it's always been a love of fabrics. So most people assume because I'm in the textile industry, I love fashion. But if I had to say if there was one thing I loved, it's textiles. So I would forego the latest style for the nicest fabric. And so, when I was young, I made my own clothes. And then, many years ago, I went to Fashion Institute of Technology, and every choice that I've made in my career has been to lead me more and more into just dealing and working primarily with textiles.
That's actually really interesting. And so based on your experience, what do you perceive to be the biggest problems currently facing the textile industry?
I think there's a disconnect from the reality of the true cost of the textile industry from an environmental and a social perspective. So, what we did was we have exported, these businesses used to be in our own countries, right? And then we exported them so that we were able to, in a sense, not have to see the ramifications from those products or not have to live with regulations, get lower costs. And so we've become disconnected from the reality of what does it mean to make a garment or any other textile product for that matter. I think we have to be careful when I like to think of textiles as anything that makes a product. It's not just apparel.
Do you envision us and the world getting to where we need to be? Like, what exactly is your inspiration for working towards this?
So I would say that what we really need to do is develop an understanding of what's going on. And so I've always been an incredibly curious person. So I would say what drives me has a lot to do with curiosity. You want to find out why something is the way it is. So we need to develop knowledge. We've lost so much knowledge. When I was young, you knew who was manufacturing product for you. If you were a brand, you knew who was manufacturing product for you. I worked very early on in my career. I worked for a company and we manufactured in Hong Kong. At the time, there was still manufacturing in Hong Kong, but our factory was right there. We would go to the factory, we would see what was in it. And I know a lot of people and a lot of companies, they don't have that exact connection. And by the way, if you didn't treat people nicely, if they weren't paid well, they would just leave on the spot. And I don't know if like sewing lines are, a lot of times each sewing line makes a particular garment, right? And the whole sewing line, the garment runs through that. So at the beginning it's parts, and then by the time it gets to the end, it's a finished garment. If you made the woman who ran that angry, the whole line would just get up and leave. I don't think things like that happen. They don't have that kind of control anymore because things are done in such a mass way. So I think we need to find systems that work in each geography where we're manufacturing. I don't advocate that we should pull out of all these countries that we've been in, right? There's a social cost to that, but we need to understand what's happening and develop systems that allow materials and products to be developed in a more holistic way.
During our initial conversation, you actually mentioned that you don't see that we're quite there yet in terms of circularity. So can you explain a bit more why you feel this?
Oh, yeah, we're absolutely not there. And what I would say is that circularity is a system. And that entire system needs to be in place. And it's a new business model. So it's not one we're familiar with. And there are lots of parts of it that exist. And so people will say, oh, well, we're circular because they have a recycled fiber. That's not circularity. Circularity is an entire system that goes from the inception of the garment through its entire life cycle. And so that the life cycle is one that is continuous. So at Accelerating Circularity, we are focused on the system for the textile to textile part, but we also have to recognize that there are many other parts of circularity. So resale is a part of circularity, domestic resale. So for wherever that garment gets collected and can it be resold in that particular geography? Is there an opportunity to repair that garment if there's something very minor wrong with it? And then could it be actually used? If it can't be used domestically, can it be used internationally? Then you put in something like textile to textile recycling. And then when you start to think of that, and that's where, as I said, Accelerating Circularity plays, there's a whole system for just that aspect of circularity that needs to happen, right? We need to be able to connect the people that will collect those garments, sort them, pre-process them, because garments have buttons and zippers and those things can't go into most recycling systems. Then it needs to go into a recycling system. Then when it comes out, it can go through, relatively normal textile making processes, yarn spinning, fabric making, garment making. But those garments now need to be manufactured and specified in a way that will allow them to continue to go back into the system, right? So when we talk about that system, there are lots of parts today that people don't necessarily think about or aren't commercial at scale.
What is your understanding of circularity?
I would say that it's a system that connects each step in a product's life. If you want to kind of make it short and sweet, and to maintain product life for as long as possible.
How would you kind of differentiate this understanding compared to sustainability?
Oh, those are two very different things, right? So circularity, the reason that anybody should move to a circular system, right, is because they want to reduce your carbon impacts versus sustainability, where you're trying to balance, and I don't think we've ever done this right. You're trying to balance the economic, the social, and the environmental aspects of something. And so those are two very different things. Obviously, carbon impacts are an environmental issue. Hopefully in a circular supply chain, we get better about being better socially and how we handle things. And then at the same time, everybody wants to have a good economic model. But when you're making new, so again, from Accelerating Circularity's perspective, if we're going to take and we're going to put use as our raw material feedstocks, we're going to use post-consumer or post-industrial waste, and then we're going to put it through the system. In some of those systems, the fibers are going to be like virgin. They're going to be white. They're going to need to be dyed. They're going to need to be finished. They're going to need to go through, yarn spinning and garment manufacturing. So there's, energy, water, chemicals that still get used that's part of a sustainability system. You could try and lump all those things into one thing and say, yeah, that's all under the circular umbrella. But in truth, the circularity, in my mind, is much more about the system. Obviously, we want that to be a clean system, but I think you can sort of differentiate those two things.
With your depth of experience and working directly with businesses within the textile industry, what advice would you give to those who are starting a new business while encouraging a circular model? Can there exactly be a balance between making a profit and making a difference?
I think the first thing you have to ask yourself is, do you need a new business, right? Is there not a business that can do the things that you would like to do, right? And do you have the capability of truly getting something to become circular, right? How are you going to, what is your plan? What is your vision to make something circular? So you've got to set up a system, you've got to believe that you can set up a system that works. And then you have to be able to measure that, right? Can you measure that in a way that you're actually going to reduce your carbon? And so, you know, if you talk about, you know, can you make a difference while making a profit? I would say that we have a tendency today, there's a lot of textile industry companies out there that makes lots of profits, right? And so if your main goal is to make profit, you don't need to create anything new. It exists. Now, if you want to become circular, then in my mind, your first priority is to reduce carbon. I would say that you also need to, we like to think that in addition to reducing carbon, that if you have a circular model, that circular model is also a circular business model, so that everyone in that system is allowed to make a profit in a way that works for everyone. And today, that's not the case. So what does a circular business model look like? I don't think that we've seen one yet. There are cooperatives out there where, you know, everybody gets together. Is there a way to say, okay, everybody has their part, everybody gets X percentage of whatever that product sells for based on their part, right? Based on some kind of fair evaluation. We don't have that today. And so I think when you start to, you know, say, oh, I want to do this and I want to profit, right? I want to profit. You've got to be careful about what your real goals are. And are they realistic?